Why can't Windows keep all of their users happy? Well, it's actually a really good reason. I want to talk about this and how it relates to Linux in today's video. Thanks for checking out this video by Switch Linux. If you like this type of content, subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so. Leave us a like and a comment down below. And I did read an article on Windows Central this week that was actually a really nice video there, an article there. I thought it'd be like a nice video just chatting about why Windows cannot please everybody in what it's doing. And this is one of those situations that is actually not Windows' fault. It just has to do with maybe partly the fact that they're always working on changing things, and that Windows has become a one-size-fits-all type of approach. And that really is the circumstance here that they find themselves in. And that may or may not be a bad thing. I mean, obviously, as a company, they have to release a product, and they can't devote, 10,000 people on that one product to have different iterations and versions. Whereas over here on Linux, if somebody doesn't like some change, they just fork it and just keep going on. This is how we get the Cinnamon desktop and the Mate desktop. GNOME had a more traditional Windows-like layout back in the day, back in GNOME 2. And then they decided, hey, we're going to completely change things around. And half the world looked at this and goes, no, that's ridiculous. And so what do? Do you complain about it all? No, you just fork it. And we got one that was forked after the modernization, being Cinnamon. And this gives you the ability to do online accounts and a lot of other more modern behind-the-scenes features. And then you had one that was forked before a lot of modern features went in, and that was Mate. Not saying that it's bad for not having those modern features, but what I am saying about it is that it represents a desktop approach from a different era. And like it or not, some people like that different era. And this is the power of Linux, that we have the ability to have all of these different options to us. If you really want something with older technology and an older layout, hey, you got it. Just find the desktop environment that speaks to your soul, install that on your Linux distribution, and you're good to go. But the problem Windows has is that it's always moving and migrating on to different things. And I think the challenge is they're working, and what Windows is really good at is backwards compatibility, but they're also working with modernizing the UI. So you have this problem that you have this underlying oldish code with a modern slap of paint. If you've ever purchased an old house or something, you go back and you're like, what color was the house? And then you go down and you lift up the siding and you see the previous siding. And then you lift that one up and there's another siding. And lift that one up, another siding. Lift that one up. If it's old enough, you might have like an asbestos tile siding. Isn't that wonderful? So that's really what Microsoft has been doing, is they've been throwing a lot of the just the paint on top of the old code. But the challenge here is that some people want the older ways and some people don't. And so because you have one product that you have no option to control how it's all working back and forth, you end up with a circumstance by which you're not going to please everybody. And that is the challenge. Now, this is, again, what Linux has solved through the concept of forking and through tweaking. For example, when I first started using the Cinnamon desktop environment, you had what was basically like the quick launch type environment down there on the panel. So, of course, the quick launch type environment coming in from like Windows XP and Windows Vista and Windows 7, every time you click that little button down there, you get a new window, a new instance, or whatever else. Well, around Windows 7 and Windows 10, 8 and 10, they started pinning instead. And so this behaves a little bit differently. So you have your Firefox, for example, pinned to the bottom of the panel. You click that and it opens up a Firefox window. You click it again, it minimizes the window. Well, what if I want two Firefoxes open? Okay, which there's a reason I did that in my flow, and I still do that sometimes in my flow. Although I might be more modernized now with utilizing tabs more across multiple different things. Before, I would keep multiple versions open. This one had a certain grouping of windows. This one had a certain group of windows. And sometimes I still do that. But the thing is that I really, really, really like that quick launch style where every application down there is just a shortcut to launch a new instance. Now, Cinnamon changed it to follow this more modern tabbed approach a few years ago, and I was not a fan. So I just dug into the settings, and I actually have a whole video about how to restore the quick launch version of that back. And that's how, even to this day, even on my latest Cinnamon, the brand new Cinnamon with the whole new Cinnamon menu and all that, it still has that quick launch style because that's my preference. Linux makes it really easy to do those types of things. And last time I knew at least in Windows 8, you could still turn that on. I imagine you might still be able to, but you never know. I haven't used Windows since right before the release of Windows 10. But the whole article talks about this. I encourage you to read the article here. And basically it says fixing Windows may be an impossible task because you just can't please everybody. Some people love the new bells and whistles and the modernity and all of these new UIs and new features. I hate it. Okay, I was that guy cursing the darkness when iOS went from skeuomorphic to that rainbow turd crap. And the reality of it is I like that older skeuomorphic design, and I'm very pleased to see that in some areas skeuomorphism is starting to come its way back. I got so sick of flat icons. But it is all a matter of preference. This is where Windows has a problem that it's a lot harder to customize, at least out of the box without installing third-party software. You really couldn't change a whole lot in it, whereas I loved the old school Windows 95, Windows 98 XP. You could do a lot of customization to make Windows your own. And somewhere around, I think 7, they just got rid of it all. You can't control your system anymore. And then, of course, since then, you're forced onto the latest nonsense. One size fits none. And everybody complains about something because, Windows just, somehow they have figured out how to not please anybody, pretty much. But this is kind of, you see the results of this poll here. And they're asking, how do you generally react when Microsoft, quote unquote, improves familiar Windows UI elements? And some people, 40% like, hey, some of them are good, but sometimes it feels like you're changing something for the sake of change. Others say, yeah, bring on the modern polish. Other ones say, only if there's an option to go back to the legacy options, and others says just don't mess with it. The article goes into the story of a sysadmin, a retired sysadmin, who has his workflow figured out perfectly in Windows 7, and you could still work with kind of that same workflow until just recently. He writes here in a comment, he says, stop messing with the UI. I'm a power user /retired sysadmin. I'd gotten a very proficient with the perfect Windows 7 UI. Then Microslop just had to change it. Then I had to spend time and effort to relearn new ways to do everything that I had become fast and efficient at. A huge waste of time and a decrease in productivity. Go ahead and fix the underlying code and make it more secure and trim out the bloat, but leave my UI alone. That's a very valid point. This is why I showed in the video, was it my Night Owl video, I think? I forget which video it was. I showed recently the screen, and my system is fairly out of date on this one. And I intentionally do that because I'm in the middle of like multiple different things at any given day. I don't have the time to change something when, to research how to change my workflow when OBS does something different and I haven't had time to look at the new version. And now I'm stuck 10 minutes before a live stream going, where the hell did that button go? And that's the problem that I have with a lot of these things, is they're changing things around and it doesn't always make logical sense. And, unless you're digging deep into the release notes, all 35 pages of it or whatever, and in many release notes, you don't actually see the changes. Somebody changed something and you don't know where it is anymore. That actually happened with Audacity. I was doing, of course I do podcasts and type stuff and use Audacity for those and audiobooks and things like that. At one point in time, they completely changed the whole location of where the macros menu was at. And it's like, I didn't know this. I had to go back and install a previous version to actually get something done for a deadline that I actually had. It's like, who changed my UI for Audacity? And that really is the point we're making here, is that it's change for the sake of change, or radical changes inside of small increments, is never really a good thing. And that sometimes is what Windows has been doing lately. In fact, it's not just a Windows problem. It is an encrapification problem across everything, you know, especially since everything's subscription services. Look at, for example, there was an AI system I subscribed to. I did a 1-year subscription. It was helping with one of the clients that we were working with. So, you know, I get this. And then over the course of the year, they keep on changing stuff. I'm like, dude, this is not what I paid for. Stop changing crap. Of course, they're just like, keep going on, keep going on, keep going on, push, push, push. And their radical improvement is a radical affront to what I'm doing, and it's radically different than what I paid for. And I, guess what, didn't renew the subscription the next year. I got sick of it. And that's kind of the same thing. Well, actually, I didn't really renew it because I replaced all that workflow with locally hosted AI models. But, you know, there you go. So looking at this, yeah, you're not going to please everybody because everybody has different workflows, but the power of Linux is you have various options to choose different distributions and different desktop environments and different levels of direct control that you have over those things. Whereas if you're on something like a Mac or on a Windows, they're just changing things for you and you just get to march along with what they're doing. And I hope you like it, because there isn't really another option for you. So let me know your thoughts about all that in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.